People who have worked on infamously bad products, games, apps, films, did you know it was bad when it was being made? Did the company? What happened?
I worked on a couple really awful big budget films. Everyone knew they were beep as we were making them. We all were being paid very well, so we didn't really worry about how awful the films were.
Not my story, but I had a manager who worked on the Fire Phone. Remember the Fire Phone? It was Amazon's disastrous foray into the cell phone. Huge rollout, terrible reviews, cost about as much as the iPhone but with none of the social or aesthetic credibility. Anyway, the way my manager told the story was like this. Originally, the Fire Phone was supposed to be the anti-iPhone. Super stripped down functionality, basic hardware, easy interface, and very low price point. That was an area in the cell market where they thought they could really dominate. Well, when the phone design was in prototyping mode, like halfway through the project or whatever, old Uncle Jeff starts coming and sitting in on meetings. And he starts asking questions. Why can't the phone have a better camera? Why can't it have more storage? Why can't it have a better screen? On and on and no one wants to say no to him. So they keep improving the phone. The rest is history, and by history I mean a huge disaster.
We knew in an early meeting about the video game that it was going to be bad because he screamed at us rather than answer a basic question. Months later the guy released a version to the public when it was hastily put together. We were shocked that he would have ever even considered this ready. A review ripped it apart so badly that it went viral. We were sure the guy would strongly reconsider blowing his fortune on making a niche game that he was failing so badly at already. He responded by putting in charge several people who were completely ill-equipped to manage a game into leadership roles and have them micromanage every step. This revolving door of managers got more out of step and cruel as time went on. This went on for 3 years with investors pulling out, layoffs, and bailouts. I was laid off 2 months ago. Since then they have contacted me to get me to give up my software license info that I paid thousands for while working for them. They are being sued, and because they came to me aggressively, it gave me a lot of warm feelings to find out how bad off they are. There is just a skeleton crew left and none of them know if it will ever get finished.
Not infamously bad, but I can usually tell when a film I'm on is going to be good or not. Most of us are not in the position to say anything constructive and be taken seriously. As long as the checks are cashing, I keep moving forward.
My teacher worked on at least one Saw video game. He hated the entire thing and his bosses were very nitpicky about everything. He kinda just accepted the pay and moved on to better things. Besides teaching, he now works for a company making VR training simulations for pilots, so he gets to study and create all kinds of planes and machinery. We're graduating soon and several people want to buy him a replica of the Saw face trap, which is one of the things he created for the game as a goodbye thank you gift.
I worked on Aliens, Colonial Marines as a tester. It was great, so much fun playing the aliens in multiplayer, revisiting the really great looking sets, levels and enjoying the story, with the understanding that it was all a work in progress. One day all of the aliens started freezing. Then big bits of the levels would disappear. Some amazing bugs would start popping up, respawning without a head after getting decapitated by the aliens. And the cutscenes seemingly never got rendered out properly. I have no idea what went wrong, but my name is in the credits forever.
Most of the time. At least when it gets close to release. I've worked on a few games. One of them was the next in a fairly popular sports franchise, but the publisher had taken it over from the original studio. The other studio had the right to make their own game, and kept the right to the source code. We had the title and the branding. Trouble is, I think everyone underestimated the amount of work involved. It was buggy as hell. We managed to get the right to delay it to fix the worst of the problems, but it still wasn't a very good game and it wasn't exactly bug-free when we did. But we had to release it. It needed to be out this season and there was competition from the previous developers, who already had a perfectly functional balanced codebase. Game 2, same general genre as Guitar Hero, and a blatant cash-in on the success of that. Harmonix kept coming up with the ideas we were going for, so scope kept changing. Management was pretty inept. A fairly simple music game that should have been out in 6 to 9 months took over 2 years and nobody really had a clear vision. It was panned by the critics. Not surprised. Entire game was project from hell. The third one I was a lot more confident about. It was a camera-based game. The concept was pretty cool, and the gameplay would have worked in something like the Play games on the PS2, but the game was sold on a specific gimmick, and the games just seemed to be a distraction from the key selling point.
Not popular media but an infamously bad school play. In freshman year of high school I decided to join the theater club as a stagehand as well as lights technician. Problem with that was that the organizer was very inconsistent with what she wanted of us. When she told us to move the lights she would change her mind 10 minutes later because I don't like that angle and to put it back. All other groups like sound, props, actors, line techs, for a pilot system to make the actors fly, everyone. It looked like a hodgepodge of random stuff just thrown together when we were done. On top of that the actors goofed off all day instead of practicing, which led to it essentially being really bad improv. In the end I decided to quit theater after that shot show and it went down as the district's worst play.
I worked on a movie with a really bad script. The company already got the funding and had to make the film, and the producers, director and various writers tried for a year constantly rewriting and changing the script to try and make it work, but it didn't. It just wasn't a good concept, had too many single-use characters, jumped around between too many locations too quickly. It was the kind of script that you just throw in the fire and forget about. But they ended up making it and it didn't turn out good. Technically it is well made but narratively it is a mess and hard to follow. All the crew knew we were working on a turkey, but hey, it's a paying job.
My brother-in-law worked at Microsoft when they released the Windows Phone. Apparently management marched through the building with an iPhone in a small casket while announcing the new phone's release date. While he liked the phone well enough, he was pretty sure that this moment was destined for ridicule.
Yes. I assume that sometimes a product comes together in a way where every individual component is fine, but the whole is just a complete beat, but usually it's very, very clear that each and every one of the turds being pressed into the mold is just a turd.
First internship as a software developer for a small startup. Half of the team was interns, the codebase was an absolute mess. When I asked about a full-time position, they couldn't tell me when or how much they could hire me for. Almost all my co-workers who weren't high on the ladder were being paid intern hourly pay. Left after 3 months, they went bankrupt the next year. Not a big surprise.
You may remember over a year ago seeing advertisements for Game of Thrones, Winter is Coming, the officially licensed browser game. Yeah, I worked on that, and it was clear it would be terrible. Entertaining overview of the game here, U2.BMO8Z basically, the state of the game when it released and the state of the game a year before release were the same. Somehow, nobody did their jobs, and yet everyone was doing absurd amounts of crunch and overtime. There were really obvious things that I would point out and say this is a problem we need to fix now, or it will become worse later, and other people would think I was being picky. Then, sure enough, it would cause a huge problem a couple months later and someone would have to spend several days fixing it. That's also separate from the design of the game itself, which I and a few coworkers just watched become worse and worse. There were so many things that we looked at and thought that's temporary, right? We're gonna iterate on that feature and improve it, right? They weren't temporary, and we didn't iterate or improve on that.
Yes, usually it's a job. You do your work and go home. Sometimes you work on passion projects that are actually really good and that's great, but mostly it's a job. It doesn't really matter to the worker bees if it is good or not.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.